This conference will now be recorded.
All right, this is Michael Lee. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 2:03 p.m. And our first agenda item is public comments. So let me pause and see if there's any member of the public that would like to make a comment. All right, I'm going to take that as no public comments. So let's move to agenda item number 3, which is the consent agenda. So the first item on the consent agenda is approving the meeting minutes from February 24th, 2021. Hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at the meeting minutes. If there's no questions about it, I'll take a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 24th.
This is Binu. Move that the minutes be accepted.
Thank you, Binu.
This is Lonnie, I second.
Thank you, Lonnie. Any discussion of the meeting minutes? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions or no votes? Hearing none, the meeting minutes from February 24th are approved. The next item on the consent agenda is a report out. So Brian, do you want to say anything about this next item?
Yeah, this is just a general process item. Any transaction under 500,000 that's consistent with our comprehensive plan and budget, and no more in aggregate of those transactions than $1 million can be approved by the staff. And we, through the deployment committee, report out those projects that were reviewed and approved. And then that clears the queue for additional projects subsequent to today. So we had one staff approved CPACE transaction for a project in Milford, totaling about $137,000. So this is the report out. And if any committee members at any time want all the background information on the underwriting of a transaction, we have it. We use the same process that we do for larger transactions that you all see as well. So yeah, that's just a report out.
All right, anybody have any questions for Brian? All right, so we'll move to agenda item 4A, which is incentive program updates and recommendations. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Sergio. Is that right?
That's correct.
Right. All right. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. This is Sergio Carrillo, Director of Incentive Programs. We wanted to give you an update on something we mentioned before, which was the sunset of the 3G network and a revenue grade meters or RGMs replacement RFP that we're going to run. As way of background, in 2020, cellular providers across the country announced plans to retire their 3G networks in favor of faster and more reliable 4Gs and 5Gs networks. T-Mobile's, as shown here, T-Mobile's and spring retirement will occur in October of 2021. AT&T will sunset in February of 2022. And Verizon plans to retire its 3G network by December of 2022. This transition will impact many industries, but particularly those that have not upgraded to 4G compatible equipment. Most RCIP and RCIP-E RGMs transmit their solar production data to the Greenbank's monitoring platform called Locus via AT&T cellular service. And when I say most, I mean it's like 99% of all RGMs. We have a handful of systems that transmit data on T-Mobile network. This transmission of solar production data is crucial to the Green Bank for a number of reasons, including monitoring system performance, but is particularly important for reporting to Pura and NEPO GIS system production, so that we, the Green Bank, can create, register, and monetize renewable energy credits, or RECs and SRECs. Next slide, please. So there are around 38,000, give or take, I just want to use round numbers, but there are around 38,000 of 45,000 approved residential solar PV systems that have an RGM register and communicating with the locus monitoring platform. Of these 38,000 plus meters, about 29,000 or 75% are owned by third-party owners or TPOs, and the remaining 9,000 systems are owned by homeowners. The presumption is that TPOs will replace their 29,000 plus meters due to contractual obligations with the Green Bank and the customers. However, on the homeowner-owned systems, the situation is slightly different. And because the EPBB incentives are provided upfront to lower the cost of installation and make adoption easier, then the financial incentive to replace the RGMs is no longer there. And convincing homeowners to incur additional costs may be tricky and may take much longer. So one thing to keep in mind is that all residential solar PV systems will keep operating normally. So homeowners will not notice any difference. The issue that we're dealing with and we're trying to resolve is the loss of connectivity between the PV systems and the locus monitoring system or platform, which again is what we use to monetize RECs and SRECs. So we've made the decision to fund the replacement of homeowners' own RGMs, since the benefits of the meter replacement far outweigh the cost. How many meters are we talking about? Well, it's about 5,000 meters, of which the Green Bank owns close to 1,000, which are the SO2, the Solar Lease 2 program systems. Is there any question about this slide? All right, next slide, please. Yes, and about the RFP per se, we decided to run an RFP as the vehicle through which we can identify a company or companies to procure and replace the revenue grade meters, and to ensure that these meters communicate via 4G network to our monitoring platform. The Green Bank will select, will screen and evaluate all RFP responses, and will select the applicant that best meets the RFP requirements, meaning that they have the financial strength and solvency to perform this job, that they have the reputation and technical capabilities to perform the job, and a deep understanding of solar and metering technologies. They must show proof of a scalable workforce in Connecticut, and the ability to hire technicians in a timely fashion. And they must be able to work successfully with multiple stakeholders, including customers, obviously, the preferred meter providers, also energy, who are the owners of the Locus platform, and obviously the Green Bank. So finally, a tentative timeline is being shown here in the slide. We plan to issue the RFP this Friday, and we're tentatively allowing 3+ weeks for respondents to prepare their responses. We plan to make a decision, select a winner, and have a PSA in place by mid-July, with the work starting soon after. So any questions related to the RFP?
Sergio, this is Mike. Just a quick question. Do you have a ballpark about how much it's going to cost per customer?
Yes, we do. Our initial conversations with what we call the PMPs, the preferred meter providers, indicate that the replacement cost could be between $350 and $500 per meter. So these, so we estimate that the total replacement cost could be in the $2 to $2.5 million range.
And so where are we getting funding this from?
Sergio, you want me to take that?
Yes, please.
No problem at all. So we had planned through our monetization of the solar home renewable energy credits over the 15 years. We had planned annual gradual meter replacements over that 15 years. Those revenues come in. First, we have to pay the bondholders because we've sold the present value of the solar home renewable energy credits to the bondholders. The residual value will accrue back to the Green Bank to cover our administrative costs for the program, as well as any other additional costs. So the replacement cost will come from the revenues generated over the 15-year period through the sale of the SRECs. In this instance, we're just going to have to pay for 5,000, over the course of the next 6 to 9 months, because we have the pressure of the February 2022 deadline on this, the changeover. We are trying to see if we can get that timeline extended through one of our solutions that we're working with Pura and NEPOOL on. That will allow us to spread the installation of those meters out over time and use some estimates based on the meters that haven't been replaced. But this would come from, again, the revenues coming from the SRECs. They would just be more front-loaded rather than occur over, a longer period of time.
Gotcha. And so it's safe to say that you are anticipating administrative costs for meter replacement, and that cost is built in.
Much more concise way of saying it, yes.
Gotcha. And I assume that's the same scenario for the meters that are not owned by the Green Bank, by other entities, that they built in the fact that they would have to replace this, or the meters at some point?
That's correct. I would assume built into their financing, lease or PPA products, that they do have ongoing operation and maintenance costs, and meter replacement would be one of them. And given what Sergio laid out contractually, the relationship between those TPOs and the customer, they have to have a meter because they are, paying based on performance of the system to the lease and the PPA or the PPA.
Got it. Thanks, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, this is Lonnie, and this is not focused on this particular, and and this sounds like exactly what needs to happen. But I'm just wondering, since I've been on the phone with my media buddies all week about the $43 billion deal to merge Warner Media, Discovery, AT&T, and and really increasing a focus on entertainment streaming. And I'm just wondering, and how that kind of changes corporate cultures sometimes when you're changing where you're going and you're kind of looking at places to cut. Do we have any kind of sense of what our technological relationships might be like going forward?
That's a good question, Lonnie. Always insightful, forward-looking. Sergio, we might consider in the RFP having respondents with respect to certain telecom providers, in our case, AT&T, indicate a response to something like this. We should consider that, one, and two, we should start asking the question, what would that result in terms of timing of the transfer from 3G to 4G, or what impact could that have on the relationship between also energy, locus, and the dial-in telecom? So we'll flag that, Lonnie, and see what we can discover through this process.
Oh, great. It just, in my experience, when these huge media mega giants reorganize and bring in new partners, and suddenly have, and they change focus, a lot of the people that have been doing what we care about go away. And they look for places to cut. They're now trying to cut community media. So, all of the media that, I think I've spoken about this before, but the media that, the local TV channels and stuff that they've been supporting, they're trying to get out from under all of that. And so there's a lot going on, and not a lot is being spoken about by the corporate folks. And it would just be interesting to see if they're going to try to unload, things that we consider to be really major obligations to community and to, people. So anyway, that's all. But that's great to keep an eye on it.
Divisions, yeah, we'll definitely look there. And then just procedurally, what will happen here is you will see the Budget Operations and Compensation Committee will see underneath the incentive programs a request for meter replacement. So we will build into our FY 2022 budget. So we will talk about that at the next upcoming, I think it's June 9th, the Budget Operations and Compensation Committee meeting. The board will review and approve the comp plan and budget at the end of June. This RFP will be done at the end of June. And then if the budget is approved, then Lonnie, what will happen is, as a result of this RFP, we will come back to you using our operating procedures. We'll have run an RFP process to identify the best party to do the work for us. We will have a budget allocation, and we'll ask you to review the recommendation of the staff for approval of the contract. So that's how it would work procedurally.
That's great. And is Bert on?
He is.
Oh, good. Bert, you can nose around too. You got good intel.
Oh, yes.
Great. That's it. We just wanted to update the deployment committee on this. This will be going on in the background as we go live with it this Friday.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Sergio. So next is agenda item 5A, which is investment updates and recommendations regarding the Skyview facility. And I think I'm turning it over to Bert for this one.
You are indeed. Thank you. So yes, by way of background for the committee, we have currently have a $7 million senior secured term loan facility with a special purpose vehicle of Skyview Ventures LLC. They're a large commercial industrial solar PV provider operating primarily in the state of Connecticut. We established in getting to the $7 million facility, which the board approved, going back to a series of transactions. This commenced in March of 2020 when the board approved a $2.3 million facility for Skyview, comprising 20 projects, which was made up of 5 schools, 13 other municipal projects, things like a senior center, animal shelter, there's a transfer station for municipal solid waste, a community center, a couple of firehouses, a library, things of that sort. And then a couple of nonprofits were in that original batch. That was for the original 2.3 million that was approved by the board. That goes back to March of 2020. In quick succession in April, we came back to the board for approval for a little bit more funding, up to 3.5 million, because Skyview had an additional 6 projects. Again, 5 of those were municipal, 1 was commercial, so substantially along the lines of municipal project funding. In October of 2020, we returned to the board for an increase in facility size, laying out an additional 13 projects. Again, those were substantially all municipal projects. And then last month, we went to the board not for an increase in funding, but to set before the board 10 additional projects that could be eligible for funding under the program facility with Skyview. Because each transaction that gets approved has to be approved on a project basis by the board. So the portfolio did not include these additional 10 projects. So we asked the board to approve that, and the board did do that. So we have 49 projects that have been approved. Several of these have already been funded by Skyview. So really doing great work for solar PPA deployment in the state. So what is really before us today is to consider an amendment of the facility for transactions that will fund on a going forward basis, so not affecting any of the pricing that has been done heretofore, but on a go forward basis. And this is part of an overall effort between the finance team and the C&I team led by Mackie Dykes to rationalize our interest rate offerings in the marketplace so that they line up generally across our product offerings between CPACE, commercial PPA, solar map, our state solar projects, etc. So this is really in line with that effort. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the adjustment that we are seeking currently, you see in the first column describes the term that we're discussing, as well as the existing term parameter. The board approved, this goes back to the March of 2020, 5.5% across the board, regardless of off-taker, and for a term of 15 years. The proposed change here, again, to align it with everything else that we're doing with state projects, municipal projects, solar map, etc., is to modify the interest rates. So depending upon the off-taker, the rate being charged would be set accordingly. So for state projects where we already have in place for our state projects with DEEP, a 3% interest rate that is being used against those projects due to their lower inherent risk, we would be applying that to this facility. For any municipal projects, and again, this is on a going forward basis, that would be ascribed a 3.75% interest rate, with the ability to slide that upwards depending upon the financial underwriting of the municipality. Most of the municipalities are of a strong investment grade. There are some that might not be, so we wanted to allow for some flexibility there. In affordable housing, where we want to encourage those projects a little bit and be a little bit kinder in terms of our interest rate, we are being consistent across the board and offering a 4.25% interest rate. And for other transactions which don't fit into those first three categories, it would be a 4.5% interest rate. The length of term would be for up to 25 years. That would be constrained by the remaining PPA term of the underlying project. Again, this is consistent with our commercial PACE program. So again, we're going for consistency here across the board. And the debt service coverage ratio would be, as it is today, at 1.3 times. The advance rate would be allowed to go up to 75% of project costs, but that is because the lower interest rate that will be applied will allow for a slight bump in the leverage that could be prudently financed by these projects. So that I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions on the overall proposal that we're bringing forward for this facility. And again, it only applies to transactions that have not entered term funding. So it would apply to anything that goes into term funding on a go-forward basis.
Hey, Bert, this is Mike. So is it safe to assume that we're just lowering the interest rate and so we're earning less, as opposed to we're actually using funds from somewhere else to buy down the interest rate?
That's correct.
Got it.
No buy downs here. These are our capital funds.
What is the source of the capital, Bert?
Currently, as system benefit charge funds, as well as Reggie would be eligible for this as well, because class 1.
Gotcha.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then we can go to the next slide, which I think is a resolution, and I'll turn it back to you, Chair Reed.
Mike, you in this context.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
sorry. My apologies to both of you.
No worries, no worries. I thought it was going to me. I was just like, wait a second. But
I was in board mode. Sorry.
Oh, God.
Okay, so this is a resolution for the committee to vote on. So I'm just trying to quickly skim to the relevant part to read here. Let me just read the whole thing. Be it resolved that the Green Bank Deployment Committee recommends to the board for its approval staff's request to amend and restate the board's existing approval of the existing term loan transaction as described by the project qualification memo submitted by the staff to the board and dated April 16, 2021, to include the expanded pipeline of Skyview PPA projects to be qualified for future advances within the $7 million limit of the existing term loan on terms and conditions substantially consistent with those described in the memorandum of strategic selection and award pursuant to the Green Bank Operating Procedures, Section 12, given the special capabilities, uniqueness, strategic importance, urgency and timeliness, and multiple phase characteristics of the existing term loan transaction. So essentially, we're approving the change to the interest rate. So,
well, specifically, you're recommending, you're agreeing to recommend this change to the board.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bert. Would anybody like to offer a motion?
So moved. Lonnie?
Thanks, Lonnie.
Second by Shandy.
Thanks, Manu. All right, so all those in favor, any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Thanks, Bert.
Thank you.
All right, I think that takes us to agenda item 6. Brian, is there any other business you want to discuss?
There's no other business I have to discuss.
All right, I think that takes us to agenda item number 7. So we're ready to adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Lonnie?
Second by Binu.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Have a great
Thank you.
day.
Bye. Good afternoon.